Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again today for Diet Demystified, how to nourish your mind, body, and soul for a vibrant you at every age. And that's exactly what we want. We want to live a happy, healthy life every single day of our lives. And my guest today is here to help us do that. Tracy Sider is a movement coach on a mission. She helps peri and menopausal women see that they don't have to accept the new normal as they age if it's anything less than fabulous. Now, she has some experience. She spent years in treatment for hip, back, bladder, and pelvic issues, even though she exercised regularly and she even taught yoga part-time. Essentially, she tells us sitting is the new smoking. Back then, her choice of exercise and lack of all-day movement affected her body alignment. But once she started to follow a more whole body approach to wellness, moving better and moving more, she finally found relief. In fact, she says that she's healthier at 50 than she was even 20 years ago. Education, simple lifestyle choices, and exercise made such a difference in Tracy's life that she actually quit her full-time job as an editor to become a movement coach full-time. Tracy, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for having me and for including me in this wonderful summit. I look very forward to hearing all the other interviews and getting all the wonderful information from everyone. And thank you for that great introduction.
Well, certainly. I think this is going to be something that most people haven't really heard of before, haven't really thought of. So, exactly what is a movement coach?
So I like to define movement coaching. I describe it in the sense that it was pre-exercise, exercises and strategies that get your body unstuck, that get you moving more, and that get you moving better, so that your exercises and movements are giving you most benefit and doing the least harm. And my clients range from couch potatoes to CrossFit bunnies and all sorts in between. And they usually come to see me in my online or in-person practice because they've tried everything else to help their issues. I'm kind of a last resort, which I don't mind at all, because that's pretty much how I got into it. Because what I do have to offer as a movement coach is probably a little bit different to anything that's out there. It is a little bit out of the box, and it is a more current scientific-based approach to resolving our pain and other issues through whole body movement. So people usually come to see me because they have chronic pain issues that just won't resolve no matter how much treatment they have, be that back, hip, neck, shoulder, fill in the blank, right? People also come to see me because of any kind of pelvic floor issues, men and women, because men have pelvic floors too. Most of the women I see have issues like sneeze, cough, laugh, trampoline pee, which is very resolvable through a whole body movement based approach. And then my other focus is on helping people to get a really strong core without creating other problems. So interestingly, the reason why my clients range from self-described couch potatoes to the super fit, like how can it be this range? Often when I'm describing what I do, people think, oh, it's just for people who don't get enough exercise. But no, it's the whole range, and it's interesting why that is. And that's because we're all coming from the same modern Western culture, okay, which is overwhelmingly defined by the amount of chair sitting that we do from a very, very young age. And this has actually changed the shape of our bodies. It's not that sitting is a problem per se, it's the fact that we are continuously chair sitting, which sets our hips at 90 degrees and our knees at 90 degrees. We're sitting in the same position when we work, when we drive, when we relax, when we eat. And that's the problem, because the body adapts to the position that it's in the most. The other common feature is that we're all largely sedentary. I know I didn't want to hear this. I thought, oh, I exercise a few times a week. I'm not sedentary, I'm active. But actually, in terms of the most up-to-date biomechanics, there is a new category of mover called actively sedentary. So sedentary would be somebody who doesn't move at all. Active is somebody who's moving all the time. Okay, if we imagine somebody like somebody who's, you know, in the cotton fields or in the rice plantations, they're moving all the time. The category that we fall into as modern Western people mostly is this actively sedentary category. And it's people who move on average only 4% of the time. And that describes people who are exercising maybe 60 to 90 minutes a day, 3 to 6 times a week. But for the rest of the time, for the time they're not exercising, they're sitting. Okay, and I think that describes pretty much most of us. We're either sitting at work or sitting in the car or sitting on the couch or generally stationary. Yeah. So why is this and what is going on here? I'd like to take kind of a different approach to describe what I'm talking about here and put it in the words of your demystifying diet, put it in the greater context of diet. And I think this makes it a bit more understandable and relatable. We spend so much time and effort thinking about what we eat, how we eat, and when we eat. We've got a very good understanding that we need a very nutritious diet. We understand that there food groups and portions and natural ingredients and nutrients and combinations and timing and all these things are really, really important. And a lot of time and effort is given to this, and we usually want to eat as much as possible, right? Within those parameters of what is nutritious food. But when it comes to movement and exercise, we pretty much do the same thing over and over for the same length of time without giving it much thought. And we want to do as little of it as possible, right? to get as much benefit. So it's kind of like eating the same portion of pasta at the same time 3 to 4 times a week and saying that that's your diet, okay? And that's all that you eat. We would never do that. We would never even consider that. So it wouldn't even cross our mind to have that as a food option because we're missing out on frequency. We need to be eating throughout the day. We're missing your bowl of pasta between 6 and 7, 3 times a week is also not giving you the natural ingredients that we know that the body needs to stay healthy. Okay, you would never consider living on junk food or a bowl of pasta a day. And it's also not giving you the varied ingredients in terms of what we know we need in terms of fats, carbohydrates and proteins, fruit and vegetables. We're all very aware of that. So in other words, we understand the necessity of having a nutritious food diet, but we give very little thought to the need to have a nutritious movement diet, right?
It's very, very true. You know, in my background is mostly food. And so that's always a piece that I'm really good at. And the movement piece, you're right. Most of us do the same thing. And health coaches and doctors, we all tell our clients the same thing. You need to move more or you need to lose weight. But when we tell them that they need to move more, we actually probably tell them they need to exercise more.
Yes.
The movement piece it's not in our vocabulary.
Right. It's not even, yeah, you're right. It's not even part of the lexicon or part of the worldview, right? And so I love this concept of nutritious movement. And the term was coined by phenomenal biomechanist, US-based biomechanist by the name of Katie Bowman, and she has written brilliant books on the topic, and she has a website called nutritiousmovement.com. So I really do encourage you to go and check her out and read her books and listen to her podcasts. And I had the privilege of learning from and training with Katie Bowman to become a restorative exercise specialist. So yeah, she's pretty phenomenal and changed my entire worldview. And her whole concept was it's based on this idea that just like we need nutritious movement. I mean, just like we need nutritious food, we also need nutritious movement. So it's a whole body, alignment-based, whole life approach to living. That was the missing piece in my wellness journey for sure. And once I started thinking in this way, I was able to resolve, like finally resolve after years and years and years and thinking this is my new normal. I was finally able to resolve my debilitating hip and back pain as well as my leaking, right? I did not want to believe that was my future, and a lot of people do just suck it up and take it as their new normal because we think we've tried everything.
We also think that it's part of aging as women. And I think we think that because that's what we've been told by our parents, our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts and everybody in even people in the medical world. That's what they tell us, this is just your new normal. So
and it's not true. While it is common, it is not normal, and it is a shame and even a crime that women are being told that there's nothing they can do about it when it is very resolvable.
It's interesting that you mentioned earlier that people come to you kind of as the last resort, and as you and I have had conversations in the past, like my thought is somebody with your experience should be the first line of defense for people.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully that's what it will come to, right?
and that's really why we want to have these conversations and do these interviews so people can understand there's so much more that they can do themselves. Bring their health back into their own hands.
Absolutely, for sure. So let's go into a little bit about why a nutritious movement diet matters so much, okay? And that may also help people understand a little bit more about, because I think the medical or health community, understandably, okay, it's dealing with problems, right, and trying to find solutions as quickly as possible. Whereas the work that I do is very much in terms of you are in control. There are a lot of things that you can control, but it does require some change. You can't just pop a pill and it's going to go away. Right. So there's a whole mindset piece behind it as well, which we'll go into. Mm-hmm. So here's an interesting fact. When I first heard of this, I was like, you're right. Exercise is a relatively new human construct. It is a relatively new phenomenon.
It's true.
Humans used to just move, and they moved a lot and in a lot of different ways. They were walking, squatting, climbing, pulling, crawling, hanging, right? And sitting would be taking a rest from all the movement that they were doing. The thing is that we have the same physical makeup. We have the same kind of DNA and skeleton as humans had hundreds of years ago or even thousands of years ago, yet we are moving a fraction of the time and a fraction of the amount, and we've replaced our requirement to move with this small little thing called exercise, and we think that we're ticking off the box, right? The problem is that the entire design of the human body evolved to enable humans to move in order to survive. We had to move to get food. We had to move to get shelter. We had to move to procreate. So it stands to reason that when we are no longer moving in these ways and moving constantly, there has to be some type of consequence. And the consequence are what Katie Bowman so beautifully called the diseases of affluence that we now have in our modern Western society. We think we're getting off scot-free, but we're not. These are things like type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, chronic muscular or joint pain, asthma, depression, gout, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis. So as much as we like to ignore it or not think about it, certainly was the case for me, movement is not optional. It is a necessity for staying healthy. So this is the different kind of angle that I'm coming from, and that we need more movement, right? So we often hear that message. That message is touted to us all the time by our doctors and our health professionals, move more. But it's more than that. We need more movement, and we need more movement variety. That's really, really important.
I would agree that, it's very different, just, we sit so often. So back in the day, when I was still in college and my first 2 jobs out of college, I worked as I was a manager at a restaurant. So we were always moving around, working in the kitchen, reaching, stretching, doing all those things. And I was still young, so I could do that, and I felt great. And then when I got a little older and I got my first desk job, that's really when I started to kind of feel like I wasn't as healthy. And back then, I didn't really exercise because I worked in the restaurant business. So I was constantly going, moving, doing.
Right.
And so exercise, like what we consider now exercise, kind of planned exercise, was not even part of the equation, though I felt better.
Yeah.
I think at the time I probably equated to the fact that I was younger, but it probably really was the fact that I was moving so much more.
Right. It's the combination of the two. You can even feel it like when you go on vacation or when you get out of your routine, what a quick change it is. And we often just think, oh, it's because I don't have the stress, but it's also because we're moving more. So let me give you some ways that we can start incorporating more and varied movement into our day.
Great.
So my first tip is to try and stack movement on top of the stuff that you're doing all day anyway, okay? Because that's the only way you are going to win, because we all have to, you know what, it would be wonderful if we could quit our jobs and go and live in a forest. I'll do that tomorrow. And in fact, that's exactly what Katie Bowman did. But she packed up from Ventura County and moved to live at the foot of the Olympic mountain range in Seattle State, in a town called Swim, which is where we went to do our training, okay?
Oh,
but my family's not going to be so open to that. So the fact of the matter is that we still have to work our jobs. We still have to sit in traffic and commute and schlep the kids. So let's try and do as much as we can within these parameters to get more movement and to get more movement variety. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of a mindset shift that has to take place in all of this as well. And my advice to you is decide that you're going to identify that your self-identity is going to be one of a mover. So it's a bit of a mindset shift. You've got to actually own it and step into it, okay? Like, I am not sedentary. I am a mover. I'm going to find whatever movement opportunities I can take, because we are very lulled into this culture of convenience where it's like, no, let's do as little as possible, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You don't have to grind your coffee. Here's a coffee machine. You don't have to unlock your car door. Just press a button. You don't have to lift your trunk. You just press a button, right? So, yeah, me too. So decide that you're going to be a mover. The next one is actually give yourself permission to move, because we've been told from a really young age, sit still and be quiet, right? And we've become really, really good sitters. So for example, I'll give you an example of what I mean. If I'm going to kind of a lecture or workshop or something, I will sometimes choose to stand or even to floor sit. And even when I'm waiting for a flight in the terminal, everybody's just sitting on chairs. I'll sit on the floor or I'll stand, and people get very uncomfortable. So be prepared for the fact that what you're going to be doing is a little bit counter-culture, and own it and give yourself permission to do it, okay? I want you to fidget. I want you to be that naughty first grader who just wants to constantly move, all right? Because that's what just kids do naturally. And we've had that whole kind of instinct of movement almost beaten out of us because of our schooling system. I mean, I wish I could have sent my children to forest school. Too late for that. That's another story. But I do encourage my kids to move as often as possible. So become a fidgeter, become a mover. And the next one is plan. Plan how you're going to piggyback movement on things that you're doing all day anyway. So let me give you some examples of that. You can get a dynamic movement station. Be careful. A lot of people will say to me, oh, I bought a standing desk. The problem is that just sitting or just standing is still sedentary. So what we want to do is we want to get a dynamic workstation. We want to stand and maybe do some exercises while we're standing. We want to, if you are in an environment that will allow you to do this, go for a lower workstation like I am here. I'm sitting on the floor on a yoga block. So it allows me to do all sorts of other things with my body while I'm sitting on the floor that I wouldn't otherwise be doing if I was just sitting on a chair. Mm-hmm. So we want a more dynamic workstation. If you are working, try and set an alarm on your phone to get up and move 5 to 10 minutes every hour. That's way more beneficial for your body than just being sedentary the whole day and killing it at the gym for an hour after work. Similarly, you wouldn't just have one meal the whole day. You would spread your food out throughout the day. It's also important to spread your movement out throughout the day. Another one is if you're short on time, you can take 3 10-minute walks throughout your day. That's also important in terms of the frequency and the distribution on movement. But also try and take at least one long, challenging walk a week where you're finding natural terrain to walk on, because we're always walking on this flat, level, hard surface. So try and find some natural terrain with hills to challenge your body a bit. Another one, which is my favorite.
I have a question about that. When you talk about natural terrain, kind of up and down, most of us live in towns or cities. So where we live on a hill, but it's still a hill that's paved. Does that still count?
Can you walk on the sidewalk?
It's either the street or nothing.
There's no grass next to the sidewalk?
Not where I am, but I'm sure other places there is. I know one place, one of the trails that we walk trails, but they're all paved.
Right. Interesting. Isn't that so sad? Because what I do when I'm walking, like in the suburb that I live in, there's a paved sidewalk, and next to it there's usually a bit of a grassy verge. So I try as often as possible to move onto the grassy verge, and it is so much more challenging for your body to walk on grass than it is to walk on a solid flat level. It's quite fascinating. So if you're just going for your daily walks, do them. It's better to do something than do nothing, but try and seek out a path or a trail that you can do every now and then that is a bit more challenging to your body and that is natural terrain.
Okay, thank you.
Even if you just do that once in a while, right? So some more tips. You can park the furthest away from your destination. Okay, I always used to joke about how when I went to the gym, everybody was fighting over the closest parking spot to the door. I'm like, oh. So don't be afraid to do that. Also, as I said earlier, choose to floor sit or stand when you have an opportunity to do so, rather than just sitting on a chair. You can take walking meetings. You can walk on your lunch break. You can floor sit while you're watching TV. Use your TV watching time to stack on exercises and stretching and rolling around on the floor, just being in a different geometry. And once you're down on the floor, your body will want to move. It will really want to move.
That is really true. I always know that when I sit on the floor, I feel like a little kid, like I can't sit still.
Amazing.
My dad would have called it St. Vita's dance.
So yes, I want you to be a little kid. And in fact, when you go to the park, if you're taking children or grandchildren to the park, don't just sit and watch the kids play. You get up on the equipment, you do some hanging, you do some moving, like use the equipment. And my kids get very, very embarrassed when I take them to the park. What can I do? I can't help myself. The other thing is also take the stairs. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but really every little bit counts. Take the stairs every opportunity you have. And also try and use your household chores as movement opportunities. Don't just think of them as chores, okay? Really get the most out of them, like folding the laundry, unpacking the dishwasher, rearrange your kitchen so that everything is not convenient. So you have to reach for stuff you use often. Reach up high and squat down low to get stuff. Let's try and make life inconvenient, okay?
Everything is inconvenient. I'm 5 foot tall, so everything has to be, I reach for everything.
And squatting, is there a way that you could add more squatting into your day?
I have only recently probably since our initial conversation, has that crossed my mind. Good. And so actually when I'm unloading the dishwasher, that's when I noticed, one day recently, I thought, oh, I can do this. Aside from that, it's such an unnatural thing now that it doesn't really cross my mind, other than if I'm quote unquote exercising.
Right.
And those are different types of squats.
Yes. So try and add some squatting, like when you unloading the dishwasher or the washing machine, come into a squat position and try that and see how that helps. The other thing is to try and make your everyday moves more movement intentional. For example, if you're standing, don't just dump it into your stand like a lot of people do. Really stand straight on both legs and feel like your muscles are holding you, okay? The other one is when you're sitting, don't just flop into the chair. You can sit towards the edge of the chair and really let your muscles hold you up and support you. And you'll actually find that both of these ways of like active sitting and active standing are actually quite tiring because we're not used to just actually using our muscles, but you'll build endurance the more you do it. The other important movement that you can put into your whole day is that we are getting up and down out of chairs and off the toilet all day long. So you use this as a squatting opportunity to really use your muscles to get you down and use your muscles to get you up. And it's harder than it looks.
Yes, I think most of the time we just kind of, as you said, you just kind of flop into the chair. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So getting yourself moving more will go a long way towards getting more nutritious movement into your life. But, okay, this is where we go just a slightly little bit one step further, because I'm sure these suggestions you've probably heard before, you've read in a magazine. It's awesome. Do them. Give yourself permission to do them and understand that every extra movement you do every day really does count. It's all cumulative. Mm-hmm. But it's also critical to understand we're just being told to move and we think that's enough. It's critical to also understand that the way you move, how you move also matters. Mm-hmm. And let me quickly go back to the whole diet, the food diet analogy that we were using. You could have prepared the most delicious, well-balanced, eat the rainbow lunch, okay, that has all your macros well calculated. But if you have poor digestion, it's not really going to matter what you're eating because your body can't assimilate and use the food and get the nutrients out of it. Exactly. And the same applies to movement. In the sense that if your body is no longer moving optimally, mm-hmm. even the movement that you do, you're not getting the benefit that you think you're getting from it, okay? And sadly, by the time we reach our 40s, most of us are not moving optimally any longer. And this is because of years and years of chair sitting, mm-hmm. of general sedentariness, which we've spoken about, of poor footwear, which I won't even get into today. That is a whole nother conversation. I think we spoke about it somewhere else, but maybe we should do like a whole thing on that sometimes.
Next time, that's okay. Definitely something we should talk about.
Also because our very limited movement repertoire, right? Mm-hmm. We do our favorite things over and over again. And this has literally changed our bodies, okay? And without knowing it, we've lost range of motion and we have poor alignment and posture. So that even when we do come to move, our bodies are making all sorts of compensations and cheats. And these could be the underlying reasons for any pain or discomfort that you are having. So together with moving more, we also need to move better.
Right, and possibly injury too, because when we think body alignment, typically when I think alignment, I think, oh, you got to go to the chiropractor. I never really, I do now, but initially I never really thought about how I was standing or how I was moving or how little I was moving. Yes. And so this time last year, my husband had a knee replacement because from an injury, but what we noticed in that final year before his surgery, his whole body was crooked because he
Right.
was compensated, the rest of his body was compensating for the knee that didn't work.
Yeah.
And if we start to focus on this now, we may never get to that point where we're breaking down.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while going to the chiropractor and the massage therapist is awesome, okay, and who doesn't love that, and who doesn't love the feeling after, it's passive things that are being done to you, and so you probably find that it doesn't stick, because you walk out of that wonderful session and you're sitting in the car the same way, you're standing the same way, you're wearing the same shoes, you're exercising the same way, and you don't even realize it. It's like you only have one route to get to the store. Your body is always taking one route to do the same move. But when the body knows better, it does better. We need to give it more like movement options and unstick our sticky bits. And that's where the kind of meat and potatoes of what I do as a movement coach come in that we look at a movement, alignment changes and corrective exercises that are specific to your condition and your body, okay? So it's in order to change the shape of your body so that it sticks. Then your sessions with the massage therapist and the chiropractor are so much more beneficial as well, because you aren't just going and undoing all the good work that your health professionals have done, right?
That does make sense.
So let me give you an example of this. Because of the amount of chair sitting that we do, when we get up to move around, we think our bodies are straightening out, like the skeleton in the corner there. But actually, we are stuck in this chair sitting position. I don't know if you've noticed that at all, or if you even look at people.
I have noticed that with myself.
Right. We get up and there's like almost this tightness through the front, this rounding of the upper back, backing of the pelvis. Now, this doesn't look so good, okay? We know it doesn't look so good. So what do? We force good posture, okay? And what we're doing by that is we're not creating change. We're just adding tension. We're adding tension to tension and kind of jacking our body even more out of alignment. So that kind of chair sitting posture is really because there is a lot of tightness and quad dominance through the front here, a lot of overdeveloped traps, and pretty much a stuck pelvis, because when we sit, we tuck our pelvis in underneath that. So please, if I can just give one little tip, please don't lift your ribs. Please don't lift your ribs when you stand up. Many of us will do this kind of like rib lifting thing to hide the roundness of our upper back. And what that actually does, it just, first of all, it doesn't fix the hyperkyphosis that's going on, but it completely turns off your whole reflexive core system. So rather let your ribs drop to where they belong. Take that tension out of your back that is holding the ribs up and kind of shearing your vertebra. Let the ribs relax to where they belong and fix with corrective exercises that excess rounding of your upper back. Because by just going like this, we call it hidden kyphosis, it's actually making your super rounding even worse. And there are some awesome corrective exercises and fix that we can do for that make a huge difference.
Tell me, Tracy, this just popped into my head. What's the difference like with the corrective movements and say going to the not necessarily the chiropractor, but the physical therapist?
So in my experience, I've been to a lot of physical therapists, and physical therapists are awesome, but in terms of how it helped or did not help me, they are often trained to deal with an acute problem, and there'll be a lot of spot treatment. Okay, you got a hip problem, so let's resolve the hip problem, and that is brilliant for what they are doing. But we're not just a hip or a pelvic floor or a back. We are whole body, and everything is affecting everything else. So the work that I do is more, first of all, in the one instance, it's more proactive, because you're getting this integrity and balance strength through your whole body, because a lot of these issues are created because of muscle imbalance.
Right.
So, and tightness through the body. So as a movement coach, I'm looking at you on a more global whole body perspective, whereas physical therapists and chiropractors are maybe looking at a more narrow approach. And there's absolutely a place for both of those. And I refer and work very closely with physical therapists and chiropractors.
That makes sense. When we talk, holistic, whole body approach, in the health and wellness world, we throw the word holistic around very often, but I think a lot of people don't understand what we mean when we say that. We say holistic, people think, some of these crazy woo-woo things that are out there, and they don't realize that we really are talking, whole body, what we can do for, so for example, I have headaches. And I know a lot of times my headaches stem from the fact that I clench my jaw. And, so I now know this, but years ago I didn't understand that. So I would have a headache, and what would be the first thing I would do? I'd go run and take 2 Tylenol. Now I understand, that whole body, that holistic part, something else is going on. What's causing that headache? Now that I realize it's the jaw, it's, I work on the jaw. I work on the tension on my jaw as opposed to that quick fix.
And then in terms of what I would say to you, if you were a client of mine, we'd really look at your alignment and where there is tension down the front of the body and through the psoas, and even down to the feet, okay? For most of my sessions, I'm looking at the feet because we're connected by this chain of fascia that goes from under our feet all the way to the top of our head. So your head is not just your head. Your head is intimately connected to your feet and your calves. And if I could just give everybody just one small exercise to do to start getting some integrity and movement through the body, and give this a try and let me know if this helps with your jaw tension at all.
Okay.
It's called the calf stretch. So let me show you, and you can give it a try.
Okay.
Most of us, just about every single person I've ever seen or worked with, we have chronically tightened calves because every time you sit, it is putting the calf, or as somebody once said to me, the what? They didn't understand my accent. The calf. It's putting the calf in
I understand your accent.
Oh, good. It's putting the calf in a shortened position every time you sit, and we've covered how much we sit, okay?
Yeah.
Plus, pretty much every shoe you wear is putting you in this positive heel position where the heel is higher than the toes. Again, that is chronically shortening the calf. So by the time we get to our 40s, that calf is so tight and short that we've created super tension through the body, and getting length through that calf is huge. It's a total game changer. So let me show you what a calf stretch is. Give it a try. Let me know how it feels. So what I'm going to use for this is something called a half round foam roller. If you have one, if you have a full roller, you can cut one in half, or otherwise just use a rolled up towel or yoga mat.
Okay.
So what you do, let me just change my camera angle so that you can see me clearer.
Okay.
So you put your thing, and I'm sure you've done calf stretches before, but this is different.
Yeah.
This is a functional calf stretch, and I won't get too much into why it's functional. If you want to know more, feel free to reach out. So I want you to put one foot towards the opposite side of the half dome, stand hip distance apart, and then what you do is you kind of inch forward with the other leg. The more you step forward with the leg, the more intense the stretch will be on the foot that's on the half dome. So importantly, we do not want the stretching to be too intense because you can absolutely just rip that muscle. Do not do that. We want to keep the intensity of the stretching very, very low, like not more than a 4 or 5 out of 10, but hold it longer. And this is a great corrective exercise to do while you're taking calls, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're washing dishes. I have these half domes all around the house, and I'm calf stretching as often as I can because I mean, I've been doing this for years, and when I wake up in the morning, my calves, it's like this fairy has sewn up my calf muscles, and that's just because I have been wearing heeled shoes for so long. And if you think you're not wearing a heeled shoe, go and check. Buy a heel. I mean anything. I mean even half an inch. I mean even a men's dress shoe. Mm-hmm. Zero drop is zero drop. If you put like a 1 inch or half an inch block under a bookshelf, that bookshelf is still going to tip forward. And that's exactly what's happening to your alignment and posture if you are wearing a shoe that is not what's called zero drop, where the heel and the toe are in line with each other. We've all been doing that. Even if you put your hand in your running shoe, you'll see that puts you in as well. So this is the calf stretch. Give it a try. Let me know. Please be very gentle. Okay. Do it often. Hold it long, low intensity, and you'll be amazed at the difference that makes, because we held together by these lines of fascia. And so we need to treat a holistic approach, takes these special trains into account.
I love it. That was great, because when you said that, I'm like, yeah, my calves are always tight. Yep, they're always bothering me. And since our very first conversation, I've really been paying attention to my shoes and actually been doing something that I, in the past, have hated. I've been walking around my house barefoot.
Oh, wow. Well done. Is your body okay with that? Because often you do have to kind of transition. You don't want to switch too quickly. So if your body's good with that, that's awesome.
So some days is better than others. You know, I would say for a couple of, actually, I've been home for the last, I don't know how long I've been home. I seem to be in and out a lot. But I've been home, and when I'm home, I kind of feel, you know what, I don't need to put my shoes on. There's no reason to wear shoes in the house.
Yes.
But I typically would. Wow. And so since our very first conversation a couple months ago, I've really been paying attention to that. And now if I put on a shoe that has a heel, even if we're just going out to dinner, so I'm literally going from the car to the restaurant and back, the next day
you can feel it.
Yeah, so I definitely agree that this is something that we need to pay attention to, because if we want to stay vibrant and energetic, and we want to live our best life, if we don't have our best body, it's impossible to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you combine that kind of more minimal shoe wearing with corrective exercises, with all sorts of corrective exercises to get more movement through the foot and strength through the leg, because often we wear shoes that are supportive. They're only supportive because we don't have the muscle strength to support our own body anymore. So it's important that we are doing corrective exercises to build up that base strength and length through the muscle, so that the body can just do what the body's meant to do, you know, without band-aids and support. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was personally where my healing came. And the incredible thing, and I just want to close with this, is that the body is very clever and adaptable, okay? As much as you've adapted to be stuck in the current position that you're in, once you start making changes, and once you notice your alignment and get more movement through the day and do specific corrective exercises to release your body and get your range of motion back, the body changes. It really changes, and it changes quite fast, and that is incredible to see.
Wonderful. Well, I know you have a free download for people to help them get started. Would you take a quick moment and just tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, so that is my, it's an alignment manual. It's called Learn 5 Alignment Adjustments in 5 Minutes. So just even knowing what good alignment is and where your bones should be relative to each other and relative to space is half the battle. Mm-hmm. So we just go through a couple of things in terms of how to stand, where our weight should be when we stand. It's going to feel very weird, okay? If you try to do these alignment points, you're going to be like, this is odd. But just bear in mind that your normal is not necessarily neutral, and you can't change what you don't acknowledge, okay? Sure. Our skeleton is meant to be like the skeleton in the doctor's office, like my little skeleton behind me. And our bones are no longer in those places, which means our muscles can't work the way they should, which means there's a lot of wear and tear on things. So just starting with alignment is a really good place to get going, because we have so much control over that, right? You can decide how wide your legs are going to be. You can decide if you're going to lift your ribs.
Wonderful. Tracy, thank you so much for all this amazing information. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All the best. Bye.